the Finance Committee to order pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Chelmsford Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information, the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.chelmsfordma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by accessing Chelmsford Telemedia website, www.chelmsfordtv.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, and/or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Please note if you wish to watch this meeting, but do not plan to present to the committee or speak during public comment, we ask that you please do so at live.chelmsfordtv.org or on your television, Comcast Channel 99, Verizon Channel 37. By doing so, you will help reduce demand on the online meeting platform. Thank you. In addition, I'd like to remind people, both members of the public and members of our board, that the Zoom chat, both public and private, is in fact a public record, and anything typed in there, whether private or not, will be made part of the record when the minutes are published. Thank you. First on the second on the agenda this evening, we have approval of minutes for the August 13th, 2020 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Do I have a vote? I'm sorry, do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the meeting minute, the notes from the meeting of August 13th as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining. I wasn't here.
I mean, you're abstaining.
Have no sound.
You have no sound, David?
No sound.
I don't know what to tell you. We can hear you.
I abstain as well. Jim, I'm not sure if you heard me.
Okay.
I was not present.
So do we have three of the five that were there. We have a quorum for that, so we can proceed. The minutes are passed. You note that, Pam. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is public comment. I would ask anyone speaking during public comment that they please state their full name and their address as you would as if you were presenting before us in person. That when you do so, you keep all comments pertaining to the topic on the agenda during public comment, and that in doing so, I will first acknowledge you in the order that you wish to speak. I'd ask that you use the chat to let me know you wish to speak, and then I will acknowledge and then ask you to come forward, state your name and your address, and then speak during public comment. Do we have anyone that would wish to speak during public comment? All right, Regina Jackson. Hold on one second.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, my name is actually John Jackson, Regina's husband. We're using her computer. And thank you for the FinCom for allowing me to speak. I have just a couple of very quick comments. First and foremost, we believe that the Board of Selectmen should honor the current town manager's contract until June 2021. We believe it is financially irresponsible for the Board of Selectmen to spend any taxpayer money trying to remove our town manager, who by all accounts is doing an outstanding job prior to the end of the contract in June 2021. There is no reason to expend any of our town money for a search committee when the town manager has a signed contract until June 2021. So I would encourage FinCom to urge the Board of Selectmen to support the town manager until such time and stop trying to sabotage the current contract that he has. Thank you. Oh, and for the record, John Jackson, 9 Essex Place, Chelmsford.
Jim, I think you said something, but you're on mute.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else would wish to speak? All right. I'm seeing nothing in the chat. No one has spoken in there. What I would do now is actually I have 3 emails which I received that were been asked to be read into the record. The first is from Ellie Gilroy, 14 Temmie Road, Precinct 9. Good afternoon. I'm writing this email in support of keeping Paul Cohen as town manager beyond the expiration of his contract, June 2021. I am sure the Finance Committee has appreciated Mr. Cohen's expert handling of the budget process over the last 14 years. An increase in the stabilization fund, superior bond rating, and an excellent capital funding plan are a few of Paul's accomplishments while being the town manager in Chelmsford. Paul has the knowledge, experience, and integrity to lead Chelmsford through financial challenging times ahead. Jim, as chairman of the Finance Committee, you have my permission to read this email via Zoom on Thursday night's 8/27 meeting. Best regards, Ellie Gilroy. Second email is from Donna Reed of 6 East Shepherd Lane. Good evening. This brief note is an attempt to show my displeasure with the people who we have selected to represent us as BOS members. My disenchantment with this town would require much more time than I have right now. I am grappling with trying to figure out how a town manager who has worked for this town and its people for the last 14 years and has never received so much bad review has suddenly become a person that needs to be removed from his position. Can someone explain to me how a man who has always gotten favorable reviews along with a raise every year is now not worthy of his position? Has he been perfect? No, but who among us has? I can think of 3 or 4 decisions he's made that I wasn't happy with, but in general, I think this town has been run smoothly, efficiently, and exceptionally well. Suddenly now, with a fairly new BOS members, he doesn't look people in the eye when he talks to them. Oh my, the horror. This decision was made without taking the proper steps, which is going to open up the possibility for Mr. Cohen to sue us once he's gone. And in addition to that, have you given thought to what it will cost to replace him if you can find someone who fits the position? Please put an end to this insanity so the man can continue to do what he has done well, far and above reproach over the past 14 years. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Sincerely, Donna Reed. And then the third email I received is from Susan Julian Gates, 7 Trotting Road, rather. To the Finance Committee. I am writing you to ask if there's any reason that you know of for removing Paul Cohen from his position as town manager. We now know that the intention of 4 or 5 select persons is to remove him, even though they themselves have given him raises and high marks. They have not given us, the residents of Chelmsford, one reason for removing him. From my perspective, he has been an excellent manager of our resources. Most recently, he had the financial acumen to renegotiate the town debt to coincide with the falling interest rates, thereby saving the town $1 million. He is responsible for both our high bond rating and fully funding our rainy day fund. He has been fiscally conservative and has steadfastly worked to better our community. He has been an elected director of the MIIA, a service of the Massachusetts Municipal Association, and under his leadership, we have complete multiple projects to preserve historic buildings, including the 2 town halls, now the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, and the Chelmsford Community Center, and most recently to acquire the Warren Pole Farm. I see no fiscal issues under his leadership. Fiscal leadership is the most important facet of being what amounts to the chief financial officer for our town. We are not appointed by the town manager. You are not appointed by the town manager, but you advise him regarding our budget. I would like to know from your perspective as individuals where you stand on removing or retaining Mr. Cohen. Thank you for your consideration, Susan Julian Gates. Pam, I'll provide you copies of each of those letters to add to the record. If anyone else would like to speak at this time, please let me know. Seeing none, I will move on to our next agenda item. Discuss potential financial impact, related considerations or concerns pertaining to the Board of Selectmen's actions with regard to the town manager, and the board's stated desire to form a town manager search committee. Yes, Kathy.
I have compiled some thoughts, and I'd like to share them.
Just before we open this up as a discussion for the committee, I want to make sure we stay on topic. We are discussing the financial impact and related considerations. So, and I'm not saying that you won't, Kathy. I just want to make sure that's very clear. That's the purpose of this agenda topic.
Okay, thank you. And if you feel I go afield, please free to jump right in.
I'll chime right in. Thank you.
Okay, so I've known and worked with Mr. Cohen for 14 years in various capacities, elected roles, volunteer roles, and as a member of numerous committees. I have always found him to be professional, exhibiting the highest of ethical standards and an excellent town manager. I don't believe he has ever received, in all his years as town manager, including his last evaluation with the current board members, a negative review. When Mr. Cohen arrived, our stabilization fund was depleted to an alarming amount. Our bond rating was less than stellar, and there was public and embarrassing acrimony between the school department and the town administration. Believe me, I know, because I was there. We have now had an excellent bond rating. The stabilization fund is at the 7 to 8% percentage point as outlined in our goals, and the school department and town administration work exceptionally well together. Additionally, Chelmsford is making strides to address our unfunded pension liabilities. The budget is well presented and implemented according to plan. The employees of the town enjoy working for him, and there doesn't seem to be any discourse between major departments or groups. In short, he is succeeding, he is performing exceptionally well and meeting the goals and objectives set before him. I strongly urge the select board to consider what is best for Chelmsford, especially during this extremely precarious financial time. I would say to them, there is no bigger and more important issue than ensuring that the town has the needed financial expertise to lead us through this crisis. If they can find a bigger fish to fry, I'd like to see it. Mr. Cohen is an exceptional financial manager, precisely what the citizens of Chelmsford need to guide us through the pandemic and subsequent financial crisis. The state of Massachusetts has suggested it will be a 3-year recovery cycle, which is perhaps an optimistic conclusion. This spring, as the immediate impact of the state and town's financial situation emerged, Mr. Cohen revised the budget, utilized stabilization funds, reduced borrowing for the capital budget, and limited the impact of services. It limited the impact on services for our residents. A very strong and proactive approach, which speaks to his many years of experience. I do not believe it will be possible to find a candidate with his caliber of abilities, especially during a pandemic. On top of this, the board is estimating a $10,000 cost for the search. I am also concerned about legal costs that may arise due to the murky circumstances surrounding the methods, procedures, and communications regarding the town manager's current contract and proposed search committee. I feel that spending should be limited during this financial crisis. Recently, our assistant town manager has opted to leave for a position with a different community, another blow to the leadership team, which may be attributed to the action of the board of select persons by creating an environment of uncertainty. In times of great crisis, it is best to have proven experience and expertise to lead the community. Chelmsford will be left in a void if a search for a new town manager is initiated. I also believe it could lead to further loss of key management roles. Typically, this happens in all industries. Chelmsford is so strong operationally because many enrolls are performed by long-term employees, including leadership of our police, fire department, library, and senior center. When change happens at the top, it often trickles down. I also have concerns for the town's reputation as a positive employer. I think this situation could have long-term effect on our ability to attract the best possible candidates. In billet format, I believe that this could impact financially, could include our bond rating, loss of employees, loss of institutional knowledge, inability to find an experienced replacement, lost opportunities in terms of grants, state funds, and additionally loss of volunteers in the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other discussion from the board?
So is this, Jim, is your question or topic specific to the search committee?
It is not. So the agenda item is discuss the potential financial impact, the related considerations and concerns that we have as a finance committee pertaining to the Board of Selectmen's actions with regard to the town manager and the board's stated desire to form a town manager search committee. So with that, it's both the decisions that are being made regarding the contract and also the stated desire from the previous meeting of the it's changed actually since I posted this agenda to select board. It's officially been recognized, so I'll be using select board from this point forward. However, at the time I wrote this, it was still, as we knew, was still Board of Selectmen. So the select board at their previous meeting had a discussion regarding a search committee. And I believe there are topic items on this upcoming agenda for their next meeting that relate to the same issues. So that opens up, it opens it up to just a financial discussion regarding the select board's position surrounding the town manager in that position.
Okay, thank you. Because I thought from the last board meeting that they kind of just left that as a open question or they didn't act on it. So I wasn't aware that they were going to continue talking about that. So I guess I'll have a few comments that are kind of general in nature, maybe along the lines of where Kathy was going. Although my tenure here is much less than Kathy and probably most of you. I've only been a resident for about 4 years, and almost 3 of those have been on the finance committee. So I guess that's a pretty good percentage. But you know, after this kind of recently came up in advance of last week's board meeting, you know, I went back through the record, you know, looked at the executive session minutes, watched the meetings, and then the last board meeting. I guess the best adjective that comes to mind is embarrassing. I think Paul used disgusting, but I don't know if I'd go that far. It probably was for him as a personal matter, but I'm kind of at a loss. Again, my interaction with Paul and most of his team in general is in a pretty small window, as most of us are. Budget season, planning, some ups and downs throughout the year. But my experience has been nothing but positive. I've served in this role in another community in Massachusetts. And, you know, not to do an A versus B, but I think Paul is just, he's engaged. I mean, if you've ever attended or watched any town board committee, 9 times out of 10, Paul's there. I can't imagine the commitment and the hours he puts into this community. Again, there can certainly be things that go on outside of my purview. But from a financial standpoint, I think he and his team across the board, not just in the finance group, but all of his direct reports are, again, engaged, committed, professional, more than happy to be, you know, questioned and debated. But at the end of the day, I think they all have the town's best interest in heart. And I feel that way with Paul. So I'm struggling to figure out where this is coming from, but he has my support. And I hope after kind of going through the motions as all of us have. We're trying to figure out what exactly is going on, that if he's got a contract through the end of next year, I'm not sure why we have a question about having a search committee. It seems like at best case, that would be potentially an issue for next year. But as was noted recently at the last meeting, we'll have a different board in place by the June 30th of next year. So to me, it's we just kind of pause this and hope that Paul and the board can continue to be professional and move forward and advance the town's interest. So that's my thoughts.
Thanks, Eric.
I'd like to echo both Kathy and Eric's comments. I went back through the record as well, reviewed the executive meeting minutes, watched the meetings that I didn't get to watch in person and or live, just to make sure that I was up to speed on everything. I have to say, like Eric's, my experience with Paul has only really been on the finance committee. And while I have an accounting background, I do not have a municipal finance background. And every question I asked in the first year or even 2 years of my time on this committee, he always answered them professionally, directly. He never talked down to us. He never made me feel stupid for not knowing what was going on, and educated me as somebody coming in wanting to do the best that I could for our town. I feel like with already the assistant town manager leaving, to potentially have him leave, as Kathy mentioned, that institutional knowledge is key. So, I don't know how long the rest of us are going to be on the committee. When we have new people step in, we need to have someone who not only understands everything, who knows it inside and out, and who has, like Eric said, the town's best interest at heart, sort of spearheading everything, the one that we ask questions of, knowing that the answers he's going to give us are honest, are forthright. And I've never once doubted anything Paul's ever said to us. So he definitely has my support.
Thanks, Mina.
Jim, I like to just piggyback on a little bit of what Kathy, Eric, and Amina said. In particular, I like to focus on our bond rating. As Kathy had mentioned, our stabilization when Paul joined was depleted and below acceptable levels. Our bond rating was not favorable at the time. Since he's been here, our stabilization fund is now at 10 million. We have a AA plus bond rating. And, I think a lot of people hear this, but don't really understand what that means. Well, what that means is we can fund more services when we borrow at a cheaper rate. So that's direct savings to our taxpayers. What goes into making these ratings? If you look at what the, S&P, Moody's, what they look at, it's the economy, debt structure of our town, financial condition, demographic factors, and the management practices of the governing board and administration. I went and told the S&P when last year when it gave us the AA rating, and I kind of highlighted some of the things they mentioned and why they gave us this rating. Very strong management. Management has strong focus on financial capital planning. Chelmsford maintains a comprehensive 5-year capital needs budget and a 10-year plan for public facilities, which it updates annually. Strong budgetary flexibility. Given no significant additional planned drawdown reserves, coupled with the exception that the town will continue to produce strong budgetary performance, we expect that Chelmsford's budgetary flexibility will remain strong throughout the outlook period. We have someone, now I work in finance, I work with a lot of CEOs, I work with a lot of finance professionals. Paul has helped us get to a position that has allowed us flexibility. The flexibility we saw in this past town meeting when we bought the Warren Farm. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have him as a leader. removing him for personal reasons, which, let's call a spade, because these board members last year gave him a good review. 2 years ago, gave him a 14% raise. So this is directly, obviously, something personal.
Well,
and I think we all see that in the town. Okay, I get that. But
Yeah.
now the board is putting us taxpayers in a position at risk of losing our bond rating, which has a direct impact to every taxpayer in this town. That falls on them. They want to go down this road, that falls on them. Not to mention the potential of not following open meeting law that opens us up to a very costly lawsuit. That all falls on the Board of Selectmen. And I just want to make sure that is clear out there.
Thank you, Nina. Hi, Vicky. Would you like to? I saw you unmuted.
Yes, I thought you were taking a breath or you were going to speak and I didn't want to interrupt. So Paul has my complete respect. And all I can say is during a COVID-19 pandemic, we definitely need strong leadership, and he has been exceptional. He has put us in exceptional standing. I could reiterate everything that all of you have said, but honestly, he has been above board, exceptional, professional. And I just don't believe during a pandemic that we should even look at canceling a contract that is legally binding and standard with all of the positive professional stature that he brings to the town. And I just have, complete, I believe we have complete consideration for retaining that contract. And I just, he has my full support.
Thanks, Vicky.
Jim, I have sound now if I would have the opportunity to speak.
Use that soundboard, David.
Thank you. Okay. Well, it's pretty hard to follow everybody else and, and have anything more really, except that I would reiterate that Paul's performance is obvious in the good shape, great shape that I think this town is in financially. And the fact that he is very competent, never shows up without really being prepared, really having done his homework, and willing to listen to people who might disagree with him, or at least ask some questions that might not be as sound as his thinking. He's easy to work with. But the real issue here, from my perspective, coming from a business guy all my career, it's just, I cannot understand how somebody can get a 14% raise, can get a performance appraisal for the last 13 years that was exemplary, and then in 1 year without the ability to really, no one's really articulated why. He hasn't been given the opportunity to respond, and we're left exposing the town financially to a grave risk by replacing him. I think it's an unacceptable situation, and I think that whatever we can do as a finance committee, we should do to try to support Paul.
All right. Thank you, David. So I put this agenda on and put this meeting on at the request of a couple of our members, given review of the last couple of meetings of the select board. And given the fact that we, under open meeting laws, can't really discuss things of this nature unless we're having an actual open meeting. And your statement kind of flows into the next agenda item. But before we get to that item, David, I would just like to comment and reiterate. The fact of the matter remains that we don't know all the reasons, and it's not apparent from the released executive session meeting minutes as to why the select board voted the way they did in those executive board meeting minutes. The fact of the matter remains that the proper process really isn't being followed if there is a decision to follow concerning how we're going to proceed with the town manager and his contract. I do know that it doesn't, I don't feel, and I don't believe it's the right time, even if I did not think that Paul was doing a good job, which is not the case. Given the fact that we are in unprecedented times, and I don't think I need to explain that to anyone. We did a budget, we entered into a budget that was reduced from the previous budgets from the previous year, but it was managed and put together and adjusted in a short period of time to keep services funded and to not take away any benefits from the taxpayers of Chelmsford. But we need to be cognizant, as Kathy said, of the forecast for how things are going to proceed in the next few years. And one of the very alarming things that we need to address the fact that this next budget season is going to look very different from previous budget seasons. We're entering into, and the warrant's being voted on in the next couple of weeks. So for our review for the first part of fall town meeting to do adjustments and or other warrant articles that may appear there. But then we start the budget season with the capital planning and other items, and the capital planning committee will likely look very different as well, and how they proceed and what they proceed with capital items. If you recall from our Springtown meeting, there were multiple capital items that were removed from that list that had been voted on and thoroughly reviewed and prepared for many years as our finance department prepares and reviews, and John Sue does a fabulous job with his department and meeting with the capital planning committee to prepare and plan for our capital projects need to be taken care of for our town to make sure that things do not fall behind and remain on a smooth course. We're not in smooth course territory right now. We're looking at a couple of years where we're going to have decreased funding from local receipts, potentially state funds are going to decrease in receipt potentially. We're looking at an uncertain financial future. And as my fellow members of the committee have stated, to lose the institutional knowledge and to have already lost our assistant manager who did an exemplary job these past few years working with the management team to keep our bond rating very high and to make sure that all negotiations are going smoothly. And we were also proceeding with different financial development in the town. I'm concerned that we are still forging forward, or not we, but the select board still appears to be at least forging forward with their decisions to potentially put together a committee to do a search for a town manager in a time when candidates will be tough to find, first of all. And second of all, we have great uncertain financial future, and we've lost already some institutional knowledge, and there's more certainly to be lost if we have a departure of a town manager who has been here for 14 years and has greatly benefited the financial situation of our town. It's concerning to me, at the very least. A vote was taken in January. There were certain discussions that were had after that. A contract was put together, and with the contract expiring in June of next year, from my understanding. What happened in between all this was a pandemic, and this whole situation started. So even in a normal situation, we'd be looking at a June discussion of the select board, but we're dealing with changed circumstances that have happened over the past few months. And those circumstances have not greatly and deleteriously affected our town yet. But I'm concerned that if we change direction now, we are signaling to people that now is the time to look elsewhere. I'm concerned about not only the loss of our management team, but also other department heads as well. And that prospect does not sit well with me.
Good point.
Exactly.
So what can we do?
Well, let's head to our fifth topic on the agenda, which is discuss and/or actions to be taken or resolutions to be drafted and adopted, if any, by the Finance Committee. So we, as we know, we are not, first of all, appointed by the town manager. We meet regularly with him regarding budget review and budgetary items, but we are tasked with watching and reporting and providing our insight and our review to the town regarding the financial future and the financial health of the town. And I think that portion we've addressed in our various comments this evening. And I think that non-political position is something that we have a voice to speak on. I think take passion and personal feelings out of the discussion, which is, I granted, difficult to do in situations like this. We need to step back and look at this from a third-party perspective and say, what is the financial impact of this if the select board proceeds as they appear to be proceeding, and what voice do we have to speak either for or against those actions in aiding a fellow board in making a decision that will impact the entire town.
Jim,
Yes.
I was wondering if with discussion, as people discuss this, I would kind of suggest a two-prong approach.
Certainly.
Because what I hear from everybody is support of the town manager's professional abilities. So perhaps there could be some sort, I don't know exactly the proper methodology, but perhaps there could be a vote, a motion and a vote made to speak to that. And then perhaps there could be a proposal to send the Board of Select Board a memorandum out with just bullet points that have been addressed by the various members of the financial impact. I'm not really sure. I feel like we should send something to the Select Board so they officially know the perspective of the Finance Committee. And I'm not sure about the best way to do that, but those are my kind of rambling thoughts on that.
No, I appreciate that. That's why we're calling this meeting, I think, is so that we can, in proper fashion, under open meeting law, discuss as a Finance Committee any action that we wish to take, or any letter we wish to write, or any position we wish to adopt to aid in a voice as a committee, if we so choose, in that decision that the Select Board is making, if they are.
Jim, other than writing a letter or taking a vote, I mean, I agree with Kathy. I like the idea of taking a vote to, in support of his professionalism. But do we have any real, for lack of a better word, power here?
Essentially, the decision is not in our court. The decision, if the proper procedure is followed under the code, the town code, the town regulations, would be for there to be a different executive session held, and for a process to be followed if the Select Board so chooses to remove the current sitting town manager and to proceed in a fashion that would be removing him from his position. And from as far as I've seen from the executive minutes and from the meetings I've watched, and they're exhaustive, the process really hasn't been followed from what I can see. But they alone are the body that hires and or fires the town manager. We can certainly add our voice, and I think a unified voice is certainly more powerful than individual speaking, because it takes, again, the idea and the goal behind this is to take the personal feeling away from that. And again, I understand it's difficult to do, but to take a perspective that this is not just a personal endeavor. This is not just a personal feeling. There's something behind that, but we have real financial health concerns for the town with how this is proceeding. And in our position as the board that reviews the financial health of the town, that reviews the budget every year, helps in that process every year. The person who the team that is in charge and the person who heads that team is a more than important person to our town, and we have firsthand knowledge of that, a very personal firsthand knowledge of that, given our committee and our charge. And I think from that perspective, our unified voice, if nothing else, provides a statement to say that, we, in some part more than others potentially, have a financial interest and have the relationship and the institutional knowledge we've had in dealing with the town manager to provide a thoughtful and I think important perspective in this discussion.
Jim.
Yes.
Jim. Can we do something like a resolution of concern of
whatever form it takes.
The fact that, sure, but can we do something that because I'm also concerned about the fact that his contract is only through next June. We are headed to some major instability and concerns. I mean, this past, was it yesterday? 2 days ago, there was a tri-board meeting between the planning board, the select board, and the Department of Health regarding our sewage capacity. I, as a finance, sitting on this committee and as a finance person, I have a concern, not only that their action, open meeting law violations and all of that, but the fact that his contract is only through next June. And that doesn't, I personally would like him locked in to get us through this time, the next couple of years during this pandemic, the sewer capacity issue, and whatever may come. Also, my concern is, with Mike McCall leaving, other people in the town, especially, managers and leaders in our town may decide to also depart. And this is not the time that we should be doing this. I'm just really concerned.
So I think, and I agree, and that's again why we're having this discussion.
Yep.
I'm not sure whether calling it a resolution or having it be a letter or a statement from the finance committee. I'm not sure that the way that we characterize it would change the weight of our statement. It's especially since a resolution that we adopted would not be binding on another board or committee. We can certainly take a position.
Jim,
either Kathy or David. I saw you both start talking.
You go ahead first, Dave.
Sometimes I try to simplify it, especially at my age.
Please go ahead.
I think I sense that we're all in agreement that we see a financial risk to the town with the removal of Paul, at this point under these circumstances. I think we are the finance committee and we're supposed to render an opinion on all the finances of the town. Are we not? Are we not, when we go to town meeting, supposed to, our opinion is asked, and we render, an opinion on each expense that the town is supposed to be made. Okay. At the very least, we should be able to send a letter to the board, the select board, stating that we see a risk and that we don't agree with the action.
Kathy?
I think what I was going to say is basically tandem of Dave. I think that we are an advisory role committee, and we do make statements based on the review of documentation, which we've had years of documentation presented to us ad nauseum, right? And we make a decision based on what we think is in the best financial interest of the town. And that's the hat we're supposed to have on right now. Is our concerns are about the financial short-term and long-term perspective of the town, which I have said I feel will be best served if Mr. Cohen remains in his position. So I think that we could wordsmith a motion that we vote on to be forwarded as an advisory capacity for them to the selectmen, which they can heed or not heed in their role. But I think it would behoove them to listen to us, in my opinion. But and I also would segue, I would do a vote of support. I would recommend a vote of support and a motion nicely wordsmithed by our chairman. or suggested strongly by the good wordsmithing of our chairman.
Chairman, yes. Mr. English major.
I think, and it might be semantics. Maybe I think we're all saying roughly the same thing, but whether it's the motion or a resolution, but whatever we come up with is going to be kind of formally submitted to the Board of Selectmen.
Select board.
Select board.
Yeah, we'll just call it the board. My preference would be that it's in support of the job that has been performed and the competency that Paul has, and not as, we know what you're doing and we have some concerns. And maybe that's just spinning or semantics or optics, whatever you want to call it. But my view is, in light of what's going on and what's been discussed in public, we feel that, Paul has done XYZ, he's got the essential talent. So it's maybe it's a spin thing, for lack of a better word, but I would come at it from that view, as opposed to, I think Anita's resolution of concern, that kind of made my ears pop up like, wow, that's kind of a negative approach. I'd rather kind of come in from a support perspective with Paul and the job he's done. My view.
Eric.
Yeah, I agree with Eric.
So
sorry, go ahead.
I get that, but as a finance person, and when I talk to boards, when I go into the boards, they ask me my opinion. And if I'm concerned about something, it's my obligation to tell them that I'm concerned. Like, there is no spin, right? You have to tell them the facts. And if you have a concern, that's how you address it with the board. And that's how I address like our position to the Board of Selectmen. There's a concern here. There is a risk. And you have to present the risk, because otherwise they will sue you, right? Like in a corporation, you could be sued for not presenting all of that. And so I get your point about the spin, but I'm concerned.
Anita, I think that there's a way to put this forward, laying out the risks and the concerns, but yet presented in more of by supporting the role, like Eric said. There has to be a positive sort of take on this. It's kind of like that spoonful of sugar. Things
totally
are much
agree.
more receptive when we come at it at a certain way. But I think that absolutely 100% we need to list the risks in doing this and what our concerns are about those risks. That's that, like you said, that's our role as advisory, like David said as well. Right. But we can't just come at them, from the first second they see this piece of paper and like we're attacking them. Otherwise, they're not going to pay attention to us.
I'm totally for that, but I do think we need to list our risk and our concerns. Like, we have to be totally transparent. Whether what you call it can be something, whatever.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Well, I think, yeah. So our charge happens in a couple of different locations in the town code, particularly Part 6, specifically 6.1 through 6.4. And in the code, it states the board of selectmen, obviously, those will be updated to select board, and school committee shall meet and confer on it as necessary to prior to and during the budget process to review the financial condition of the town, revenue, expenditure forecast, and other relevant information in order to develop a coordinated and balanced budget. The finance committee shall participate in discussion with the board of selectmen and the school committee in advisory capacity. And I think that's where our role sits. We are advisory capacity considering budgetary concerns. And I think this is a huge budgetary concern. It is a situation in which I'm not even going to go into other issues that may stem from the contract, its negotiation, and the actions that are being taken concerning it. I'm not going to expound upon that. I'm not putting that lawyer hat on tonight. What I'm concerned about is the budget process, most definitely, and most specifically.
Jim,
where we sit.
But that lawyer hat, though, I'm
not going to expound on that.
No, I don't want you to expound, but there is a financial implication from a legal perspective, correct?
Yes, there could be.
There could be. Okay.
All right, hold on. All right, that's not, okay, good. Just making sure we didn't have any bombing going on. Whenever I hear a sound in the background, it's either my daughter or someone else's. So it didn't come from my end. So yeah, no, yes. So the short answer, is yes, there could be implications concerning the current contract and the process in which the procedure is going and the way things have been worded in entering into certain sessions. There's a process that's outlined in the code. It's outlined in the town bylaws, and it should be followed. And the contract is a separate entity, a separate legal entity that's been entered into, and there are considerations that are attached to that as well. But as far as we're concerned, that doesn't. While we can be concerned about that, for certainly, I think that is tertiary to our initial concern of the overlying development of the budget and the financial condition of the town. So I know this was having a motion and then having a potential letter or resolution or something drafted. I'll certainly entertain any motions or suggestions.
Okay, first I'll make a motion in support of Paul Cohen based on his managerial and financial expertise remaining as I'll make a motion based on Paul Cohen's financial expertise and success as a town manager to support him continuing in this role.
I'll second.
And I'd entertain, friendly motions to adjust that. They don't like the verbiage.
So discussion. Are there any friendly motions to amend or anything of that nature? Or do we want to discuss the language of that motion?
Kathy, do you remember what you said?
I believe I said
we can ask.
Make a motion based on the town manager expertise and financial and past performances to support him remaining as the town manager.
Beyond his current contract.
Can you do beyond his current contract?
We can, any motion that we take is a motion of our body. It's a resolution that's not going to have any teeth other than our own advisory capacity. So we could really add anything to the motion, quite frankly.
So, we could do two things. One, we could do a roll call support of Paul, and then we could do a statement saying in our advisory capacity, and then as highlighted in our meeting of whatever today's date is,
August 27th.
The financial impacts could be, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'm kind of perplexed as how to verbalize what we want to do.
I think the timing is where I get a little stuck because he's under contract through June of next year, right? So I don't know if the current, if what is going on currently with the board is, I mean, that can't change. And I'm assuming unless there's some significant, cause. So really nothing that we do or they do is effective until almost a year from now. So I don't know, like today's point of support, retaining him past June 30th of next year, that's a long, like, I would think that would be something we would be talking about next spring. And this is more of just at this moment with what's going on now, we support him and think he's doing an excellent job in his role.
My concern. Okay.
So Eric, in normal circumstances, I would agree. I would say that we have a contract in place that runs through June of next year, and any other action that's being taken has not been taken properly, based upon my understanding of the code. And I believe that they're looking for. I believe the select board is looking for guidance on that, and they didn't have that ability on their past meeting. What could happen is the proper procedure could be followed if there is the ability under the current contract to terminate prior to, although that is a big conversation to be had with council, with the select board that we're not a part of, and we wouldn't be a part of. But it would have to, I believe it would have to be triggered by the proper procedure. But that procedure could be, and we don't know. We don't know the feeling. All we know is that at their last meeting, they had an agenda item concerning a search committee, and there was a lengthy discussion on it. And I used the word discussion loosely.
Jim, my concern, and this is financially, looking at it, say, and I'm making an assumption, I get this, but say that there is grounds for Mr. Cohen to sue the town. If they do not lock him in, or we make the recommendation that they really should just lock him in for the next 3 years or whatever, that protects the town from any potential lawsuits as well, if that goes down that road. Not to mention, it gives the employees of this town more incentives to stay employed in our town, which will also have, could have other implications. That's how I'm thinking about David's comment beyond the current contract.
I agree.
In other words, let's make sure we're covering ourselves.
It is certainly in our best interest.
I'm just trying to verbalize what the actual motion is on the table. I think, yeah, because we do have the open motion on the table. We're in discussion now, and I believe, and Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, that your motion is we move that based on his financial expertise and past, the Finance Committee provides their vote of support of Paul Cohen remaining as town manager.
That is what I said, yes. And I'd be willing to table or remove the motion or amend it as a friendly amendment if that doesn't, isn't comprehensive enough.
I think it gets the point across. I at least for the first part of what we're discussing, because I know you had a part A and part B. I think for the first part, your statement. Sorry, that's not the statement part. It's the motion. I apologize.
Right.
that based on, I'm going to read it one more time, based on his financial expertise and past performance, the Finance Committee provides their vote of support of Paul Cohen remaining as town manager. That is the, for lack of a better word, resolution that we adopt. And then it goes to the second discussion regarding said statement that you so graciously volunteered me to draft.
But to address Anita's point that David kind of started, if we tack onto that motion, something as simple as, again, just throwing this out there, and recommend or encourage the board to follow past practice and extend the contract for the typical 3-year term, or something along those lines to say that, we want this to be more than just a 1-year deal. Does that kind of meet both topics we've been talking about?
And if anybody's looking at the chat, Colleen Stanfield's comment, the last portion of it,
I'm
puts
so
that succinctly.
because we're not in public comment right now, I'm not including that discussion, just as if we were on a in a situation in which we were in front of a crowd, if you will. I will certainly, we have a public comment section coming after this, and I will read any statements in the comment section into the record. And I get where you're going, Vicky. But in a normal circumstance, we wouldn't have comment coming in while we're in the middle of an agenda item. What I could do is entertain a motion to suspend this current agenda topic, to take the public comment out of order, and then to take the current agenda item back up after moving the public comment.
I understand. That's why I was asking about the chat initially. So what I was just saying is if everyone were able to read the succinct portion of what was just commented, it would be easily drafted, is all I was thinking. Disregard.
No, Vicky, I believe me. I understand the sentiment. We're in an interesting situation where we do have a chat. It is public record, and that is being displayed in front of all of us. But again, it wouldn't normally come during this agenda item. We wouldn't normally discuss it during this agenda item because the person would not be speaking during this particular portion. But like I said, we can table the current agenda item, although we do have a motion on the table. We might want to address that motion. We could table this current agenda topic. We could take up public comment out of order, and then we could take it off the table to this agenda topic if we so choose, but I cannot make that motion.
Am I muted? I guess I'm not. I'll make that motion
hold on. We currently have a motion open on the table for discussion.
So I will table, since I am the verbalizer of the motion, I will ask that we table that motion until after we take public input, until after public input. Is that what you want?
I wasn't suggesting that. It was just what Eric was verbalizing. No, I was not.
Oh.
So I don't hear a second.
Okay, so we're back to our original.
We're back to the motion. Yeah. And that's fine. That would be if we wanted to do that, that would be the way to do it. But okay, so we're still in the statement we have based on this. So this is the initial motion, and then we're talking about part A, part B. So for this, we currently have, and I think what was added, we have, based on his financial expertise and past performance, the Finance Committee provides their vote of support of Paul Cohen remaining as town manager, and encourage the select board to extend his current contract for the,
I'd say just beyond June, beyond the current end.
beyond its current terminus.
Right.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Do we have to second this?
We already have a second.
Yeah, I already seconded it.
All right. I got lost in the process.
Okay, so now we have I think we have a full, at least for this portion, motion with a friendly amendment. Any further discussion on that particular motion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote.
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Vicky,
Aye.
Amina,
Aye.
Eric. I'll take that as an aye, Eric. Anita,
Aye. Yes.
David.
Yes. Aye.
That's a vote in support of that language we stated, 7-0. That's a unanimous vote. Okay. Now that we've done that portion, Kathy, you had a part B.
Okay. I believe that we probably should send some sort of written notification to the selectmen as in our role as an advisory capacity. And then we could do dots on the various reasons that we believe would be financial implications to the town. Shall I make a motion to something like that? Or do we want to discuss this part B before we go into the motions thing?
You can make a general motion to draft either a letter or resolution to send to the select board, language to be discussed.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to send a written resolution to the Board of Selectmen from the Finance Committee in our advisory capacity, itemizing the ways that the finances of Chelmsford could be impacted by the decision to not renew the decision of the town manager's contract. Verbiage to be determined or discussed.
To a second?
Just a question. Oh, second.
Discussion. Go ahead.
I just have a question. Do we have to, so if we draft a letter, do we have to discuss does that have to be all in open meeting, the letter as well? So we have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
The general meat of what we're putting into the letter is going to need to be discussed here in open meeting.
The specifics you can do later, kind of like we do with the letter.
I or whoever else is drafting can make and comment on, subject to it being submitted to show the verbiage has been added to it. So much like we draft a letter and then review and send, the actual voted language is there. It's a matter of approving the style in which it's been compiled.
Do we have to have another meeting to approve that letter? Okay.
Well, if we approve the information in substance tonight, I don't believe you would have to hold an additional meeting to approve the final letter. Good question.
Do we want to just draft a letter, go onto a Word document and draft it now? And
do I want to right now?
My suggestion, instead of having 7 people try to write a letter on a Zoom call, which sounds like a nightmare, I think if you go back and watch the first 15 minutes of this discussion, all 7 of us made points. To me, that's the letter. We boil that down and condense it and organize it, but I think what we've already discussed is the content of the letter. So I don't know if we need to go through and do that now.
So Eric, I think you're on to the right process, because you're right. We have discussed our reasons behind and supporting our motion we've just taken. In this meeting, there is an open, there will be a set of minutes we will vote on later concerning that verbiage. We'll have a recorded version of this meeting, and that's largely how I compile my fall and spring town meeting letters is through both my notes, but also through a rewatch of our meetings to make sure that I haven't missed anything, including in the letter that gets sent around before it gets published.
So if we did that, and I said we instead of saying you, Jim, I'm trying to be all inclusive, even though I think it's probably going to be you. If you took that shot like you do with the chairman's letter and you come up with that draft, and we might have some back and forth edits and commentary via email, but then get together again, whether it's, whenever that may be in the near future, and that draft is then presented and discussed and officially voted on. Does that follow I think that checks all the boxes?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Kathy.
I think many of the points that people made, we all had similar points about professionalism, impact of the bond rating, employment, right down the line. We keep hearing a number of the same points when we each individually spoke. So I think we could, refer back to people's comments, and then because some of it comes down to grammar choices. If we all agree on the theme of what's said and the basic points that we want, you need strong leadership in this time of, it's the worst financial crisis since the Depression. We needed strong leadership. So,
I think a good term might be fiscal uncertainty.
Thank you.
See, Kathy, you just started. I picked up the ball and ran.
You keep going.
So I think the to make sure I'm clear here, we have a motion on the table to, and I'll actually watch back to pick up the initial verbiage that you had there, Kathy. But we've decided to draft a letter in support of our motion, which we've taken, and that we will draft said letter based upon our discussion and our comments that we've made this evening.
It's in our advisory capacity as a finance committee.
Advisory capacity, in our finance committee. I think we may want to have a quick public meeting just to adopt the final language of that letter. It's a little different than a town meeting letter. Just so that we make sure we're all on the same page and we are doing it in the proper procedure. So let's do that then. So we can certainly vote on drafting this letter, and then we can discuss having a meeting and when that might be. Any further comment? Discussion? All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, a roll call. I'll start with David.
Aye.
Kathy.
Aye.
Vicky.
Aye.
Amina.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Anita. I think that does an aye. Okay. And I will also vote in favor. So that's 7-0 in drafting. And so what we'll do is I'll take a stab at the first draft of that and circulate so that we can have a final version to review at another meeting. When would we like to hold that meeting? I don't know what people's schedules look like.
I think the sooner the better, don't you?
Probably, yeah. We need 48 hours notice for a meeting.
Considering that the board of the select board is on their agenda for Monday is having their executive session has something to do with the town manager, and I forget the exact wording. Is there any way we can do a quick meeting on the wording before that?
If you post the meeting tomorrow, we could have a meeting on Monday, because Friday is enough time for open meeting
Yep.
rules.
That's a really
I
short
help
amount of
you.
time for Jim to get this letter
help
put
you.
together.
No, I
And
get
then
that.
around to all of us and then, yeah, that's going to be a tough one.
Well, that's all I'm saying
My
as
only
far as getting the meeting in before the selectmen on Monday.
How long can this take? Maybe a half an hour? Are you sure you don't want to just do it live so that we can get it to them without having Jim to have to go through the rigmarole of reposting?
That might be nice to Jim. Plus, we don't need, don't let me talk too much, but we don't really have to be we can be more succinct. Like I'm saying, maybe we do bullet points and then refer back to our meeting, to the meeting, which they can review our meeting online, and our meeting notes will be approved, in the future. So that, because we've all really expressed a lot of similar points, and our meeting notes will be, official. So we could, in a quick, one paragraph or whatever, bulletproof, you could refer them back to our meeting and the fact that the minute notes will be, approved, something to that effect. Based on time constraints, we want to notify, based on time constraints, or something to the, nature of the business, in our advisory capacity, we feel that the following financial implication, following harsh financial implications to the town of Chelmsford in the following areas, and we would advise against proceeding with a search committee, and would further state that we would prefer, our recommendation is for the town manager's contract to be continued past the current terminus, blah, blah, blah.
So I think the way, and I appreciate the formatting that you're putting in there, Kathy. I think what we could do is have a letter from the Finance Committee stating that on August 27th, 2020, the Finance Committee held a meeting at 7:30, the minutes of which will be available and voted on at a later date, and the broadcast of which has been recorded and is available on Chelmsford Telemedia. At said meeting, the Finance Committee accepted public comment in support of Paul Cohen as town manager, and adopted the motion that, based upon his expertise and past performance, the Finance Committee provides their vote of support of Paul Cohen remaining as town manager, and encouraged the Select Board to extend his current contract beyond its current terminus, the vote of which was unanimous. In further support of that, and as will be provided and further developed in the meeting minutes and the record of that evening, the Finance Committee stated their concerns regarding bond rating, financial uncertainty, loss of future employees, volunteers in the community, and concerns regarding the current contract and the Select Board's decision to proceed if they so choose with a search committee. The Finance Committee urges strongly against this action for the financial concerns elucidated both in their motion and also in the content of that meeting of August 27th. The Finance Committee makes all of their members available for further consultation, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide our advisory on this particular topic.
Excellent. Second.
Excellent. Show off.
You didn't
Second.
need 3 days.
Would you repeat that again, Jim?
Oh my God.
One more time.
Thank you, Jim. I knew you could do it.
Amazing. That's always.
Awesome.
And
So,
that's why you're a lawyer.
well,
And,
one of the
and he's the
reasons.
chair.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done.
so if everyone's comfortable with the language there too, as slightly adjusted, I will put that into letter format. And I won't ask. Well, I can certainly I can circulate that for signature if members want to add their signature to that document, and we'll submit it to. We can submit it either in person. I don't. Well, actually, there won't be in person. There's no in-person meeting.
Perfect.
Certainly deliver it to the town
Clerk.
town clerk, and thank you. And I'm sorry, I've used up all my words now. And we can email a copy to the select board in anticipation of their meeting on Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Perfect. Thanks.
So I think we've already voted on submitting that letter. I think we all support the language. I don't think we need to take a second vote, or third vote rather, on that. Is there anything else we want to discuss under this agenda topic? No. Okay, perfect. I'm going to open it back up for further public comment. Again, I'm asking anyone that wants to speak if they could please let me know in the chat, and when they do present, that they provide their full name and also their address as they would in a in-person public meeting. There are a couple of comments that have been made in the chat, which are part of the record, but I will read into the record so that those viewing currently can hear them and will not have to do a request or wait for their meeting minutes to be released. Just bear with me, I'm scrolling. Okay, our first comment is from Janet Dubner from 46 Dalton Road, who states that she would like to add my support for Paul Cohen. He has done an excellent job as our town manager. The next comment is from Maria Santos from 19 Parkhurst Road. She states, I would also like to add my support for this committee's consideration. This is a very important issue. We need a town manager with the kind of experience and knowledge that Paul Cohen brings to the position, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. I also truly appreciate that Paul Cohen believes in education and its value to our town. I support this committee, looking at the needless cost that removing Mr. Cohen would lead to at this time. We need a board that can work for the good of all. Maria Santos. I'm not entirely clear as to who posted this particular comment, but it's the mission statement in the select board policies and procedures. The role of the Board of Selectmen and Town Manager, 1-1 mission statement. The mission of the Board of Selectmen is to ensure the highest possible quality of management and leadership with regard to the community's use of its human, physical, and fiscal resources. To achieve its mission, the Board of Selectmen shall employ a town manager and shall maintain a working relationship according to the highest possible standards of town leadership and development. The board shall set policy and strategic direction for the community, and the manager shall implement board policy through town employees. The board shall hear all appeals and special problems which have not been resolved at management levels and shall render decisions based on the best interests of the community as a whole. The board shall also function as the licensing authority of the town and render decisions regarding the issuance of all licenses based on the best interests of the community as a whole. That's from Colleen Stansfield, 21 First Street. Thank you. All right. Next, we have a comment from Danielle Evans Cole from 18 Janet Road. I would like to thank the Finance Committee members for going on the record tonight in their support of Paul Cohen. I believe that the 4 select board members who are attempting to form a premature and unneeded search committee for a new town manager are putting our town in serious financial jeopardy. In my years as a town meeting rep, I have found Mr. Cohen to be ethical, professional, and fully capable of running Chelmsford. There's a voluminous amount of evidence to show that retaining Paul Cohen is in the best interests of the Chelmsford. As a resident and taxpayer, I am deeply concerned that if we lose Paul Cohen during the instability of the coming years, the damage to Chelmsford will be dire. Again, that was from Danielle Evans Cole. The others seem to be general statements. Unless there's anyone else that believes that anything else in the comments should be read. Nothing else looks like a public comment. Is there anyone else that's on the line right now or in the waiting room would like to speak? All right, seeing none, I will ask them any press questions, although I don't see any members of the press on the line right now. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, guys, we'll keep an eye out for the email, and I will see you all very shortly because the budget process is coming right around the corner. Well, actually, first, first fall time meeting, then the budget process. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.